till it's over. Till the world's out of sight, we will stand, we will fight. It's not over till it's over.
Hey, what's going on, guys? MC Man here, back with another video. Today we're going to be doing another build god video. This is going to be for Anubis. This is going to be an interesting one. Let's just get right into it. So, we're going to talk about skills. What you should level up first is, I see a lot of Anubis players. As you can see, I have a diamond Anubis. I have a lot of experience with this god. Not saying my build's the best, but this is what I use. So let's go with skills. What you should start maxing out first. What I like to max out first is my 2 or 3. People always say to max out your 1, but I always like to play a defensive Anubis. I don't like to play an offensive just because he doesn't have an escape. So if you want to always max out either your Mummify or your hands, up to you. If you're going for a creep wave, say you're doing a Smite 1v1, you always want to max out this first to avoid damage instead of maxing out your 1 to get that out. And then I would max out my 2 to get the Mummify up for a longer stun, and then I would put a 1 point on my 1 and then max out my ult all the way, and then 1 all the way. So that's what I do. So this is my normal start. Starter items. Okay, this is the risky one, Soulstone. When you hit an enemy god with an auto attack after 5 Soulstone, its ability does 30% more magical power, and you get plus 4 MP5. So that is a risky start. Plus you get 20 magical power and 100 mana. But what I always like to buy is Vamparted Shroud, just because it's like the most core item that you need for a mage. 20% magical power and 100% health and 5% MP5. Killing an enemy restores 10% health and mana. Now this is really good, especially for a mage that needs mana and doesn't really have a good auto attacks. Like if you are playing a mage that, say Kronos would be an excellent choice with this item. But for Anubis, it might be a little bit risky. So that's my starter items. Okay, for shoes, I always like to buy the Shoes of Magi, especially since they just added magical penetration 10 points on it, and I just like the best damage. And or you could just get Shoes of Focus, which give you the cooldown reduction instead of the extra damage. Shoes of Focus are a little bit cheaper, but I always like the more damage ones because I'm going to be getting cooldown reduction in the later end of the game. Now, a lot of people that play Anubis know that this item is a lot better than the Talon. The Talon, okay, 100% magical power. Well, magical power and 12% lifesteal. You gain 1 additional magical power per 1% of your missing health. Okay, that's fine. That's a nice default build. It's really good with a lot of mages. But for Anubis, I think this is a lot better. It gives you a lot more stuff. It gives you the cooldown reduction, which Anubis is going to need later on into the game. 70% magical power, 15% magical lifesteal, and yeah, the 10% cooldown reduction. Now the passive it's an aura. It helps nearby enemies. Plus 20 magical power and 10% magical lifesteal to all allies within 70 units. Now this can be very good if you're going to be playing let's see, the mid lane. If you're going to be doing a mid lane Anubis, which is probably the best, or solo or mid, whatever you want to go. If you're going mid, this is going to be very good for ganking teammates. Say there's a support coming, he gets a little bit of lifesteal and magical power. Same with the jungler if they gank. But with the solo lane, if you're going to be buying this item early, the jungler might be staying in your lane just a little bit, and he might get the passive for it. So I always recommend this item over the Talon. That is just me. Now, the Obsidian Shard. The Obsidian Shard is a very good item. It's very necessary for mostly every mage in Smite. Gives you 70 plus magical power, and you gain 33% magical penetration. So you just gain magical penetration, which is a very good item to have, like I said, for a mage. Very necessary. Now, Kronos' Pendant. Some people would argue that they would rather have the Ratatouille over it, but I always like to get the Kronos Pendant early. Now, if you're really good at hitting your Mummify, your second ability, if you're really good at hitting that wrap, then you don't need this. You can just go straight into Ratatouille, but for the extra damage. But if you're kind of new at playing Anubis, or you're okay but not the best at hitting his wraps, then I recommend going for the Kronos Pendant. And okay, next, after you if you, like I said, if you get these 3 items first, this is what you need first. If it's up to you, like I said, if you are bad at hitting his wrap, go for Cronus Pendant for the cooldown reduction, or if you're good, go for Ratatouille for the extra early damage. Now, this is Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver is a really good item for mostly supports, I would say, mages, in that category. 100% magical power, 300 mana, especially good for Anubis. He's a pretty good mana whore, I like to do say myself. 1-8, God takes damage from an ability. They take 50% of their maximum health in addition damage. It multiple gods are hit. The damage is appealed to one of the greatest maximum health. This can only occur every 60 seconds. So you can only do this every 60 seconds, but it's a very good item to have. If you're not going to be going into a lot of teams fights as Anubis, I want to get this for late game. I would try to get it early, just so you can verse your enemy with the 60-second cooldown every now and again. So that's that item. It's a pretty expensive item. Try to get it early, but up to you. Okay, we got the spear here. Now, the spear is a very good item to have for a mage. Gives you 40% magical power and 15% magical penetration. The passive, enemies hit by your damaging abilities have their magical protection reduced by 10%, and an additional 10% for 5 seconds, match 2 stats. So this is basically your mage's executioner item to get rid of the supports and their protections. So that's what that is. That if you're versing, I don't know, say you're versing a warrior jungler or a warrior solo and a warrior and a support guardian, you're probably going to want to pick this up in that game, depending on who the enemy team is, depending on what protections they have. You always want to look at their items before you buy a counter protection item like this, because you could buy a better item that does more damage if they don't have protections. Now let's go to Do More. Do More I do like to buy, but only if you're winning, only if you're ahead. You should probably buy this out of all the items. You should probably buy this soon as possible after after your boots. I would just say, you know what, if I'm winning early, I'm gonna buy Doom Orb, just because it's such a good damage item. It's the most damaging mage item in the entire game by far. 40% magical power, 200 mana, and 7 MP5. You gain 10% magical power per stack and receive 2 stats per god. Kill and 1 stack per god. Kill and assist half of your stats and are lost on death. Max 10 stats. So basically what that means, every god you get 2 stats on. Every kill of a god you get 2 stats on it. You gain 10% magical power per stack. You can have up to 10 stats. If you get an assist, you only get 1 stack. If you die, you lose half of your stats. So say you have all 10 stats. If you die, you go back down to 5. So on and so forth. Now, for the defense, these are what I would like for my defense. Breastplate of Valor. Now, this is a very good item, especially for an Anubis, which is a mana whore. It gives you the 25% cooldown reduction, 75% physical protections, and 550 mana. So if you are versing, say there is an Apollo, he's really far ahead, you want to get that physical protection for the auto attacks. Now, if you are using a lot of mana, say you're missing a lot of abilities, you need the mana, I would recommend getting this item, just because it gives you so much mana out of it and the cooldown reduction. It's very good for new players. The Magi's Blessing, very simple, very basic item. One of the best in the game for a defense item, I do say so myself. It's very good for almost any god, just because of the passive. 50 physical protections, 15%, 15% magical protections, and 350 health. Absorbs a single hard crowd control effect on or root every 90 seconds. When this occurs, the owner also receives 1 second of crowd control immunity. So basically, this is like purification beads, created for purification beads. If you guys don't know what that is, it's this item right here. Basically, it's an active item. When you activate it, it makes you immune to all crowd control abilities, CC immunity abilities. But this is just basically the same thing. I'm gonna buy it just to show you. It puts this bubble on you. So say, I don't know, there's another Anubis. He tries to stun you. It will get rid of the bubble, pop the bubble, and you won't get stunned basically. So it's a very good item if you're versing, I don't know, so let's say an Apollo, let's say another Anubis, maybe an Agni, a Sylvanas Ultimate, a Tyr, basically all those kind of gods you always want to buy a Magi's Blessing on. So that is that. Let's go to the Bulwark of Hope. the bulwark. Gives you 450 health. Now this is really good for a mage to get an item that just gives you like health like that, like a lot of health, just for one item. 60% magical protections. If you are below 25% health, you gain a shield that reduces damage by 50% for 1 second. Can only occur every 60 seconds. Okay, so this is a very good item to have, especially without the passive, but the passive is very good as well. It's just a good overall item to have if you were losing, if you were dying, say you're versing an Apollo, he crits you 3 times, you're dead. This is a very good item to give you just that health and the passive. Okay, the Winged Blade. Winged Blade is very good. The two core items, if you're versing Anubis in the mid lane and you want to buy items that counter him, you're going to want to buy his Magi's Blessing and a Winged Blade. Just because the Magi's Blessing gets rid of the wrap, and the Winged Blade, this ability gets applied by a slow. So if you walk over it on the enemy team, you get slowed. But if you buy a Winged Blade, basically when hit by a slow, you are immune. You're immune to slows, and your movement speed is increased by 20% for 4 seconds. Occurs every 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, when Anubis uses this ability, you're not slowed by it, and you get a 4-second movement speed bonus buff. I think that is a very, very good item for against Anubis. Plus, it just gives you 300 health. 10% cooldown reduction, which, like I said, cooldown reduction is very good for Anubis, and the 10% attack speed, which is like, okay, whatever, it's for a mage, and 10% movement speed is also very good. So, let's go into some active items. So, yeah, the reason why I have a greater blink and a combat blink here is there's 2 different scenarios you can have this for. If you're versing an Odin, say you're going mid, and you're versing an Odin that's a jungler, if he just continuously keeps jumping on you and ganking and ulting, your only way to escape, because you don't have an escape, is the combat blink. Say there's no Odin, say you want to be a little bit more aggressive, say you're winning a lot of team fights, you're ahead of the enemy team. Now you want to go for the Greater Blink. The Greater Blink really helps you a lot just because it's only a 45-second cooldown instead of 180 second. Say you're chasing down your enemies, you want to get to them fast. You want to blink in, use your Mummify, and just own them. So say I'm chasing my enemy. He runs behind this wall. He's about to TP and back. I just go over here, blink, mummify him. He's dead. Okay, so that's my point out there. Anubis is very good with both blinks, both sides. Greater Purification Beads, just like the Magi's Blessing. The thing is with this is if you're buying a Magi's Blessing, you always don't really want to buy Purification Beads. You always want. The thing with active items is once you buy them, you can't sell them back. So you need to know into the game, okay, who am I supposed to counter? Who's going to stun me? Say I'm versing Ymir. Then I'm going to have to buy Magi's Blessing. Or do I just want to buy the Greater Purification and save the item spot? That is up to you. Now, I always want to buy a Greater Aegis with this god just because of a lot of enemies. You're going to be going mid. You're going to be getting Raws, you're going to be getting Agnes, you're going to be getting Poseidons. You're going to want to buy Greater Aegis for them. That's just the mid lane role. It's always good for a character that does not have an escape to buy a Greater Aegis. And yeah, just so forth. Also, if you're going to be going mid, you're going to be always wanting to buy wards. I recommend buying the Sentry Ward just because it's really popular in this meta now, the Season 2 meta. It's always better to buy just a 1 Sentry Ward instead of 2 wards because everybody's buying Sentry Wards now. Late game, I don't recommend buying the Elixir of Defense. I recommend buying the Poster of Magical Might and the Elixir of Power just because you're Anubis. You basically, if you're going Anubis, you want to get damage. His damage on his abilities do the most in the game. His ultimate is crazy with damage, but he has a lot of downsides like no escape and all that kind of stuff. So that has been my Anubis guide. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe and like for more guides and more gameplays. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.